The 2025 Williams car has been revealed with a very bold livery that will not be its official livery for 2025 before you ask, but only its run livery for this shakedown and really showing off the FW47. We got Carlos Sainz in the car running a couple of laps, and plenty of chatter between Carbon. This was a very good shakedown, and I wonder if that's inspired from obviously their new driver Carlos Sainz, who came from Ferrari. The questions were fun. Seeing the car in the live stream, the shots that they gave us, we got a lot about the car and really the drivers and what we can expect for this FW47 in the 2025 Formula 1 season. And while the full focus for Williams is in 2025, this is still a big change to the 2025 car. And what a contrast to 2024, where the car could barely come out. They were working on Excel spreadsheets to this big, nice shakedown, Jensen Button presenting, and in general looking like a big team now with their title sponsor. I think it put a smile on all our faces. But right before I get into that, I wanted to thank you guys for support on the videos. You guys are amazing per usual. Let's get close to that 100K. That is the goal and the dream. I would love your guys' support for that. There's so much to this 2025 Formula 1 season. We've really only started, but this is a lovely part of the season. So let's go over Williams' 2025 Formula 1 car. And we're going to start from front to back. We have much more pictures here to go over than we did for the McLaren. They're a little bit clearer, but still a lot of things hidden within this team. As we can see on the 2024 Williams, in comparison to that of the 2025 car, the 2024 was much more profound on the front wing, and those flaps were doing a lot of the heavy lifting. This year, it is a much more reduced front wing and more reminiscent of that of a Red Bull front wing or Ferrari and any of the top teams. Williams has always been a step behind when it comes to the front wing work, and it's nice that it's a completely different front wing, with its shape being radically different to that of 2024, the mid-span specifically for 2024, and as you can see, the edge that they used on that fourth flap was much more profound in 24 than it is in 25. But this goes along also with the front nose. They've changed the shape of that from having a very flat nose in 2024 to something more similar to what all the teams are running for better airflow to go over the car and have more air run obviously to the middle part of the car and the underfloor. This front wing probably will have some flexing. We'll have to see if they change it midway through the season. That will be essential to look at for most teams. McLaren did not change their front wing. It might be for that exact reason, or we just haven't seen it yet. As for the front suspension, it looks very similar to that of the previous season. McLaren showed that they put in a bunch of anti-dive in that front suspension, and that could be essential for most teams, and we'll probably see a lot of change in that area for a lot of these top running teams. But for Williams in the front suspension, it's slight. I think they have added more anti-dive, at least to that last wishbone there in the back, but very similar to that of 24. It could make a big difference though. The biggest changes you're going to see is obviously from the side view of this car. The 2024 car did make a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of people talk about the overbite side pods that was introduced in 24 in Zandvoort specifically. It seemed like it flew under the radar for a bit. Some people didn't notice this. They did actually extend the lip of that overbite further on the 2025 car, but from this view, you can notice that the floor has changed. We'll go a little bit more in depth about that. And they've changed just slightly the curve that is on that end plate, as well as the shape at the top part of the side pod. As you can see, there's more of a downward slope and a water slide on the 24 car, while the 2025 car is more constant and gradually makes its way back to the rear of the car. Here's a much better picture for us to look at comparing the 24 and the 25 car when it comes to this side pod shape. And you can see more of what I'm talking about. There isn't as profound of a waterfall as they did have in 24. And something really interesting that they keep changing, specifically where it says keeper if you're looking, is that outboard fence. The shape has changed tremendously from 24 to 25 and then even previously in 2023. Really interesting what they're doing there. Not many teams have done this, and I'm not sure we will see too much of this through the season. We also see a shift in the engine cover. It has changed a decent amount from that of 24. Looks like increased pressure to recover for lower drag on the car. A lot of teams are going for a much more slight engine cover in comparison to what we had in the beginning of these regulations. The airbox in size really looks the same, so there isn't much evolution there. But as I stated, the undercut and the top part of that side pod has shifted a bit, not too much though. Specifically looking at the floor, the biggest things you're going to notice just off of an eye test is that floor edge now has 5 of those little mini winglets in comparison to its 4 that I had in the previous season, which is more closely resembled to that of the Mercedes. Mercedes ran 5 of those little wing edge parts, while most other teams ran either 4 or 3 depending on if it was Red Bull or Ferrari. As you can also see with the SIS structure, it does seem to be a bit more profound in this floor, meaning that they've raised the floor from its previous 2024 season to promote more flow to that underfloor and generate as much downforce as possible. This is the key to these cars, and that's really where we're missing a lot of where they're generating this downforce, but we're never going to get pictures of that unless they crash in Monaco. Cooling on the Williams, pretty much the same. Not much has changed here, so there's not really much to talk about. Maybe there's a bit of a different shape. We're going to see this change a lot throughout the season. We saw a change from Bahrain all the way down to Mexico, so it's not really too much we can look into, at least here for this shakedown. The rear suspension, from what I have seen, I believe this to be the same as well. They kept it from 23 to 24, and now they're also keeping it from 24 to 25. This is for money saving purposes. If they want to put their full effort into 26, there isn't really a reason for them to pick up the rear suspension and waste money there, especially if they're going to crash a lot. I don't expect it to be as much as it was obviously in 24 with these two drivers, but a smart decision at the end of the day if you're going to put your full focus in 26. We also got a nice rear wing shot, and there are slight variations when it comes to the edge of this rear wing, but nothing too crazy. Mainly what we can depict from this picture is that the beam wing is still rocking that very heavy bottom piece of the beam wing that's been ran throughout the whole season in 24. A lot of teams actually followed this after seeing what the Red Bull was obviously able to produce with something similar of that in 23. And Williams has loved rocking this big beam wing. We can also see the shift in engine cover and how much more different it is to that low drag setup. And we can see the side pods have a bit more of a shape like the McLaren. Lastly, looking at the above shot shows us yet again that engine cover, showing you how it's a bit different. It does have a little bit of bumps, nothing even close to that of the Red Bull we saw in 24. But this also mainly shows you the difference in side pod philosophy. 24, a bit of a water slide. Here, it's curved in, more similar to that of the McLaren style rather than the Aston Martin of 2023. It's still an aggressive step and definitely an evolution. There is a lot of talks of them fighting with Aston Martin and Alpine, fighting for those last points paying positions. It's possible they could step up with the top guys, but that's going to require a lot more development. I think they're not going to add too much performance to this car and to really put their foot through the door in 2026. Stability is the key really here for 2025. They fell back in 24. They've expanded their workforce to about 1,000 people, and James still expects this force to keep expanding through the next couple of seasons. And if they can have a nice constant and very fair 2025, it'll do wonders for them in 26. They don't need to be spending a lot of money, meaning a lot of crashes, and development won't be a key focus here till we really get these new 2026 cars. Every team will be much more conservative, and we've definitely seen a more conservative approach from Williams rather than McLaren. So while I do expect a good start to the season, I don't expect these guys to just be flying out of the blue. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.